Howdy folks, TJ here. You caught me drinking a little bit of coffee this morning. I had some conundrums. I had some thoughts while I was on the shitter. What do you call it? Lou over there? I call it shitter or John. I hate to be the name John, although my middle name's John. What am I yapping about? You know, let me show you, but let me take a sip of my, I haven't had a sip yet. This coffee's starting to get cold. The other day, in one of my videos, I said, let me grab one of my Speccy Nexts. And yes, I'm a proud owner of two Nexts. On the side of this Next, I don't know if it's focusing in. Actually, my buddy Jay Mundy said, it's because it focuses in on your face. Get your face out of the picture. And then it will focus in on shit. He didn't say shit, but I always say shit. Man, I'm swearing like a Dickens this morning. So what's this green button? The green button on the side. Drive button. Okay, I can put my Next down. I better put it over here before I drop it or do something stupid with it. So what's on my mind? Let me read off a little info here. And then what my conundrum, what my thoughts were. It's really not a conundrum, but it's a thought. And I thought I would chat about it this morning while drinking coffee. So in the Kickstarter 2 Quick Start booklet, it came with a little information. And in all these years I've owned the Next, I don't think once I pushed it a few minutes ago, the drive button. I never used the drive button. Why didn't I use the drive button? I used the NMI button like crazy. The red reset button only periodically. I'm more of a soft reset guy, and if I'm going to power down, I use the power button. Even though the reset button's there, and yes, I know you can push it for a little longer and do a hard reset. It's a little indented, so it's a little hard for my fingers to get in there. So let me read. The drive button triggers the div MMCs. That is the hardware module that manages the SD card. Own NMI button. When in Next mode, it is disabled. So that's why I don't use it, because I'm always in Next mode. And I don't think to date I've installed or explored any other cores. I mean, shame on me, right? I need to, but I haven't. It's because I'm so enamored with Next. I just don't have an interest, I guess, to play with other cores, even though I know one day I will. Maybe I'll wait for the QL core to come out. Then I'll do it. Okay, so let me read on. But it is automatically enabled when an alternative operating system called ESX-DOS, which I'm familiar with because I have it on my Omni laptop, is installed in another of the ZX Spectrum Next personalities. The Next is like Sybil. It's got all sorts of personalities. It does all sorts of stuff. If you've seen Sybil, you'll know what that means. So, why am I bringing this up? Because it appears that the drive button is used in things other than your Next ZX OS, why you bought the Next. You want to play some new games, new features, new fandangled fun. But the Next was originally, envisioned to be able to do all the old stuff and the new stuff. And are we at a point where one day the older stuff will become less important and the newer stuff will become more important? Are we in the middle of that? The beginning stages of that? So that's what I had on my mind on the shitter this morning when I was thinking. I do a lot of good thinking there. So, again, I use my Next as a Next. I play Next games. I play a hell of a lot of older Speccy 48 and 128K games. I don't need to get out of Next mode per se to do that, right? I turn on the Next. It's in Next. I play a game. I do my thing. I use the browser. I play the games. I do all that. So that's been why I've never explored, and I will make a video one day on this drive button. I'm thinking I should, but I've never used that freaking button. And then I started thinking, well, how many of you have used that button? Did you buy the Next specifically to just play old stuff and not the new? What are you using? Why are you using that drive button? Well, it appears that you would do it if you're in one of these alternative personalities, which I haven't explored yet. But I started thinking, how many of you are really, really exploring the other things on a majority of the basis? I'm going to think most people are turning on their Next and just want to play the occasional specky older game, the occasional newer game, program their own new games in the new ZX Next Basic, and explore and play the Next that way. How many of you 10,000 people that now have a Next are really focusing in on the old and not the new? So that was one of my thoughts when I was sitting again on the shitter. And then I started thinking, has the new world of Sinclair, the Next, it is a lineage from the old. 10,000 of them have been sold. The odds are, in my little pea brain here, I know there was millions of older Speckies, and there's lots of people using them. But right now, we stop this very second and say, everybody that's using an older Speccy Next, not that it's in your closet, not that it's in your attic, not that you used one 5 years ago or 1 year ago, that you're actively using an older Speccy, or you're actively using a Speccy Next. Who wins? Who is the majority now? I'm almost thinking that the majority is now the Speccy Next. 2017, they announced it. 2018 and forward, we've had Kickstarters, and then now there's 10,000 of them out in the world. Sure, some of them are in boxes still, but I'm thinking that there's a heck of a lot more action, heck of a lot more using of a Speccy Next today compared to a older Speccy. Now again, there were 5 million older Speccies sold? So there's tons of them out there, but that was 40 years ago, 30 some odd years ago. And sure, there's a lot of collectors. Sure, there's a lot of people that own them. I'm talking actively using it. If you turn it on once every few months, I don't consider that actively using it. It's just a little, I want to go play this game, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But actively turning it on almost every day, doing stuff, who's the majority now? There's no quantifiable data that I have, but I'm asking you, and you can post down below, who do you think the majority is now? I mean, to me, all of the action, all of the focus, or a majority of it, has been on this new Speccy Next. It does Next, it does old, it's a lot easier in general to use because it's got HDMI, it's faster, it's just more, it's very compatible. It does what the original designers envisions, that it's a next lineage, it's a next step up from where they left off, and it's doing so many fun things. So that was my thought on the shitter this morning, and I'm wondering what you think. Do you think that the Next now is the majority, that there's more Speccy Nexts being used on a continual basis versus the old? And please, don't count the ones that are in boxes sitting someplace not being used. Again, that's perfectly fine if that's your thing. We're talking about use, not a collector that's just letting it sit in a box. You're getting it out, you're using it, and not getting it out. I don't get anything out. Well, I get a lot of things out. But I've got my 2 Speccy Nexts here. They're ready to rumble when I'm ready to rumble. I don't have to shift and maneuver and take out of boxes and do all this stuff. Now, I've got plenty of those circulating through this room. It's because I've got limited room and I've got a lot of computers. So to use everything, I do cycle through other computers. But in my world of Sinclair, those 2 behind me, the Speccy Next, the 2 of them, as a tag team now, are getting lots of use. So in my house, the Speccy Next wins. Not that the older ones are bad. They're wonderful. In fact, I not long ago took out my toast rack. I was playing a game, and I killed the keyboard right on camera. If you were watching the videos, the keys stopped working. So I had to fix the keyboard. Those are some of the things that you run into when you have older computers. So I think in the coming years, we're going to see a more use of Next versus the old, because the old, you got to face it, unless you're a technician, unless you're an electronics person fixing them, you're beating the shit out of these suckers and they're just going to stop working. And a lot of us will end up putting them in boxes. Now, since I do a YouTube channel and I'm exploring still, I will be continuing to use my older ones. I have to replace the keyboard. And I actually already bought a keyboard fixer-upper for my toast rack, and I'll make a future video on that. But since getting my Nexts, I don't use my older ones as much. Only on occasional, take it out, put it on, say, let's bring up the older one just for the sake of it. But the Speccy Next is really the bee's knees for me. It hits all the check marks. It does everything I need it to do and then some. So anyway, what's your thoughts? Do you think now at this stage, how many years are we into this? 2008, we'll call it 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 20. We're basically 7 years into this whole Speccy Next thing. In that 7 years, now we've got about 10,000 Next, and then we've got the Ngos out there, and there's some other, C-Spec. That's software. I'm talking hardware. Let's talk Ngos, and that new little Xberry Pi, I guess technically, it does a lot of what or all of, close, or not even close. I don't know. I don't own one. Do you own one? How close is it to a Next? It doesn't have the keyboard or any of that stuff, so it's a cool deviation from it, though. Anyway, what do you think? Do you think the Next is now bumping out a little bit of the older? I mean, it has me, I can't imagine 10,000, even say 5,000. Let's cut it in half because, let's face it, some people bought Next and probably don't use them as much as myself or some other people that are infatuated with it. They bought it, they tinker, they put it back up. But let's say even half of them, 5,000 Next out there. Do you think there's 5,000 older Speccy users that daily use their Speccies? I'm going to say no. I know it's a great computer, and I know 5 million were sold. I just can't picture 5,000 people like me turning on their Speccies every day. I think maybe once a month, something like that. And I don't want to get into if you only use it this much, are you really using it? You know what I'm trying to get at. So anyway, I think the Speccy Next is now nudging out. I don't think blowing out, but I think nudging out the older Speccy in terms of use, because it just does everything and then some. And it's a active platform that's being created for software-wise that the older Speccy can't run. For example, the new Attic Attack. It can play the old one. It can't play the new one. But the new one can play the old one. You kind of get my drift. I think there's going to be a certain point where the Speccy Nexts are going to start escalating even higher. And then if there's a third Kickstarter, we'll have to wait and see. Will another 5,000 be sold? I don't know. It's hard for me to envision. I am blown away that roughly 5,000 sold in this last one. Is there another room for another 5,000 Speccy Nexts? I don't know. As much as I love the Next, unless there's some little nifty color, something that entices people like me to buy a third or a second in some people's cases, I'm not quite sure. But we'll wait and see. I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to buy their first one. So anyway, that's my thought. My coffee, man, this coffee is cold. Kind of lukewarm. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this little rant, chat, whatever you want to call it. But I'm going to say Speccy Next just a little inkling above the older now in terms of actual users using on a daily basis or close. Yeah, there you go. Thanks for listening in to my morning shitter, Lou, John chat. You're lucky I wasn't sitting on the John while I was doing this video, because then you would be really repulsed. Although I'm sure a few of you crazies out there would like that. Goodbye.